Record. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Crafting with Kimberly, gnome style. I've got my jammies on that has my gnome for the holidays with my gnome-y pants in my very messy craft room. And we're going to make some tassel gnomes and a cardboard gnome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the view so you can see just my hands to make it easier to follow. So hold on a second. And there we go. So now you'll be able to see my hands and see what I'm doing, and I'll hold things up close so we know what we're doing. What you should have is a pair of scissors, a hot glue gun plugged in. If you are just using regular glue, it's just going to take a little longer to dry, but you can use regular glue. It doesn't have to be a hot glue gun. So regular glue is okay. If you were able to pick up a kit, you'll have everything that you need in that. If not, the supplies that we are using, a mop head. Our mop head looked like this, and we took it apart to use some mop strands. You need some yarn for the beard. Fuzzy is better. You need some yarn for the hat. Fuzzy is better. Fuzzy is always good. I'm using some wooden beads for the noses. Either a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube. I've used some big pieces of cardboard to help me get the yarn, the sizes that I want for the tassel and for the pieces for the hat. We're also using some fabric. So let's start with the cardboard gnome. I did not finish my example, but this is what he's going to look like. And imagine a nose. So that's what we're going to make right now. And what I did is I took a piece of cardboard and I cut the shape that I wanted for the hat. And then I made a pattern out of a piece of paper. I basically took a piece of paper and started to trace and say, well, how can I get a piece of paper to fit well on this? And I just cut out the piece of paper once I got my shape. So if you want to do this at home and do different sizes, this is how I did it. Cut the size cardboard that you want for your hat. Then take a big, this was a big piece of paper, put your hat down. And then basically you just fold the paper in so you can get the lines. And then I just cut out on the lines. So you can see it kind of looks almost like a diamond effect to be able to fold easily with a little bit of overlap. You always want to have a little bit of overlap. This way your gnome can be okay on both sides and it'll look good depending on where you have it. So once I made my paper copy, then I went to the back of a cereal box. It's a great craft tool. I put my paper down on my cereal box and I traced it because it's kind of hard when you're tracing. It's hard to use it on a piece of paper. I wanted something more solid, and that's how I got my pattern out of the cardboard. Then I put it on top of my fabric and cut around that. So then I have the perfect size. For the kits, it's already cut up, but I want you to be able to make more of these at home so you'll know how to do it. So you can see it will fit really nicely on there. So we're going to put that aside for right now, but now you know how to do that. And we're going to make our beard first. For the kits, we had 7 long pieces of mop yarn. I call it mop yarn. The cotton of the mops are perfect, and you can buy them online. Most department stores will have them. The Dollar Tree is fantastic. They have them only for $1. They come right apart, but it makes a great looking piece of beard material. So I happen to use, for the length of this, 7 pieces of this string. I'm cutting into 4 pieces and then gluing those on. So I have 28 pieces together. So to do that, you're going to take your one, this is how it comes off of your mop. You're going to take it, you're going to divide it in half, and then divide it in half again. So it's in half and in half. And then I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to just kind of hold it and cut that end. I'm going to come over here and hold it and cut that end. So now I have 4 pretty even pieces. So we're going to do that with all of our mop heads. So fold it in half and fold it in half and cut and cut. We're going to do that for my particular, if you make these again and you make a bigger size hat, you may need more mop strands. But for this kit, if you were able to get a kit, for this particular kit, 7 was the lucky number. So again, you just cut and cut. And fold it in half. And if it's not even, don't worry about it, because we can always give the gnome a little beard trim at the end. Or if you really want them jaggedy, that's fun too. It can be a scraggly looking gnome. All right, so now I have all of my pieces cut to be ready to glue onto my cardboard. Now, because I cut my fabric to be going over the whole thing and cover both sides, it doesn't really matter what side of the cardboard that I'm going to use. And again, I had a box, so I have a nice thick piece of cardboard. But if you don't have any cardboard boxes at home, go for a cereal box or any kind of food cardboard box. That works great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hot glue, and when you're using hot glue, be very, very careful. I'm going to run a little bit. I'm not going to put glue throughout the whole line. I'm just going to go a little bit. And a little trick, you can use a chopstick or a pencil. And if you use a pencil, you can push that down, because hot glue is really hot. So I can use my pencil to kind of push it down into the glue. And I'm probably only going 1/4 of an inch up. So that's like, if you take your fingernail, that's probably halfway of your fingernail. So that's about 1/4. I don't have to go way up here. So I am just gluing those right in order, right next to each other, so they're nice and tight. I'm just gluing them all along the bottom. They also have really cool things called silicone fingers, and it's a rubber finger that lets you touch hot glue without getting burned. So see, with this finger, I can push on all of those and it sticks, and I don't burn myself. They do have these at the Dollar Tree as well. I believe 4 of them in a package. They're very nice to use. I'll keep using the pencil so you can see how that's being used. So I ran out of glue, so I'm going to put a little bit more glue, and I'm going to keep going. So we're just covering all of that. If it's not even, you do not have to worry about it because we're going to give them a haircut at the end. So you just keep working. It goes really fast, as you can see. If you're using regular glue instead of hot glue, you just have to be careful so you don't move it as you're working, so it gets moved, because you know it takes a little bit longer for like Elmer's glue to dry. So we're just slowly, but somewhat quickly, putting these on, pushing them down right in a row. Really easy to do. If you did not want to use a mop, you can just use yarn. Yarn is fine too. You can really use any kind of thickness of yarn that you want. You can use white, you can use cream, gray, whatever color beard you want your gnome to have, you can use. If you use really thin yarn, you're just going to need an awful lot of strands. So the thicker the yarn, the less strands you have to use. I actually had a little bit of, I'd probably put a little bit of space in mine because it doesn't look like all of my strands are going to fit. So I must have spaced them out a little bit. I have like 3 strands left over. And I could look around and say, oh, where do I want to put another one? Maybe I'll put another one right there. That looks a little empty, so I'm just going to put some glue on there. And put it right on top. And then I want to use them all since I cut them. Maybe I'll put another one right here. Put that on top. And maybe I'll put another one over here at the end and do another full part at the end. So now I've used all of my strands. And then you just push it down and make sure they're on there. And if the glue starts to come up on your pencil, you can just peel that right off. Like I said, a chopstick works too. Anything that allows you to push it down hard without having to burn your fingers. So look how easy that was. Oh, and I'm also gluing. I always protect my table. I have a plastic tablecloth on here. You can put wax paper down. You can put tin foil down, just something so you don't ever glue on your table. And look at that. Look at how easy that is and how cute that already looks. And if you had just white on this side, if you wanted to color it and not put fabric on it, you could color it and do that. Paint it, color it, put stickers on it. He can be like that. But in the kit, we have fabric already cut, so we're going to do that. We're going to use the fabric. I'm going to put my fabric down. I did this so it's going to not come right to the edge. I'm going to overlap it just a little bit. But we do have a piece of ribbon. So if you don't get it quite to the edge, there is a piece of ribbon to put on as well. So you could go right to the edge if you want, but I'm going to overlap it just a little bit, just to make sure we don't have an edge showing. The easiest way to do it is start up at the top. And because it's a point, I'm going to put a little bit of glue there at the tip. And I'm going to fold my piece over. That way I know no cardboard is going to show through. And see, that's a nice thing with the pencil. You can just roll it, make sure it gets on there. So now my edge is folded. I'm going to put some glue. All over the back. I'm going to very carefully, oops, this came out a little bit, so I'm going to even use the tip of my pencil to push that up. Push it back over. I like to use my silicone finger, so I'm going to use that. You're just going to fold it very carefully over. Push it down. We're going to fold the other side over. Oops, mine folded a bit underneath because I moved it. So I'm just going to make sure that's nice and tight. I'm going to put a little bit more glue. We're going to fold that piece over. Glue that down. And see, it was a little wrinkly, and that's okay. Just going to move it over till it gets to the point. I need a little bit of glue here because you can see that's flopping around a little bit. So we'll put a little glue like that. So now you can see you have the hat. I thought it would be fun to put a piece of ribbon on it. I love ribbon that has wire edges. So it's nice if it has the wire because then you can mold it. And by molding it means I can really put it around this form. You can see I'm just setting it down where I want it. I'm going to flip it over. I can bend it where I want it to go. So because this is a triangle and it's going this way and I folded my wire and it's straight, the nice piece about the wire is I can just move it over just like that. Now, if you want both sides to show, then do it neatly. You can see I can just kind of bend that a little bit, make a real pretty corner. And you can see how that looks like that. So I'm going to glue that on down. Bringing all of that in. And folding that over. I don't plan on having mine show on both sides. I'm going to put it up against the wall. So I don't really care kind of what my back looks like. If it's wrinkly, that's okay. If you were going to hang it somewhere and you would see both sides, then do this part neatly. So then it looks pretty on both sides. But since I'm not going to do that, I don't really care. So then you can see you've got a pretty ribbon there, and you can use any kind of ribbon. And I chose for the kits, I chose just a plain ribbon. So if you want to put stickers, if you want to take paint and paint some snowflakes on there, you can do that. Whatever you want to do. If you just want to leave it plain, you can do that. I found with a gnome, the best gnomes have really big noses. So the bigger the gnome, the cuter the cuter the nose. The bigger the nose, the cuter the gnome. So I like to use wooden beads. If you can't find wooden beads the size that you need, You can use a cotton ball and put a cotton ball there. You can take a piece of nylon stocking, fold that over a cotton ball to make it look like a flesh colored nose or material. And you just want to see where you want your gnome. If you want, you could lift it up and tape it under. For this project, I decided not to do that. I just am going to make sure that it's glued right in the middle, and I'm not going to put my fabric over it. A lot of times the gnomes have the hat. You can kind of see on my shirt, it has it folded over. If you wanted to make sure you folded it over, maybe glue your nose first and then fold it, but I did not plan on doing that for this. So I'm just going to put a drop of glue and carefully set my nose down. I'm making sure the holes, because these are beads, I'm making sure my holes go this way. And look at that, you have a completed gnome already. How cute is that? It's easy, it's fast. If you want to hang him, you can take a piece of your yarn, cut a piece that you want, the size you want, put it there and hot glue it to that. If you wanted to add anything at the top, you could put a snowflake, you could put a jingle bell, you could put cotton balls to make it look like snow, whatever you wanted, but there, he's all done. I'm not going to glue, I'm going to use these 2 pieces of yarn for something else. So I'm not going to glue a hook, but that's what it would look like if you wanted to glue a hook. So that's one gnome all done. Now let's go on to the other kind of gnomes. We're going to do a really cute tassel gnome. He's got a very, very big bushy beard. These are really cute if you make a bunch of these, and you can take a long piece of string and string it through and you can hang them. For the kits, I gave you enough yarn to do green and red stripes. Another one was just straight red, and another one was just straight green. I thought those would look good together because I gave you enough to make 3 gnomes. I'm only going to show how to make 1 gnome though, because they're all the same. For this, as I said, you need some yarn. I like the fuzzy yarn. If you are going to use yarn that's this thin, you would just need to wrap it a lot more so it gets to be a very full beard. You can also use the mop strands for this too. That works too. I like to make my tassels with a piece of cardboard. Again, I used the same box. It was nice and thick and heavy, but you can also use your cardboard from your cereal box. I decided how long I wanted my beard. So you can see we're going to be making a tassel that looks like this. When I was a little girl, we used to make dolls out of these, and you would divide it this way, and then 2 pieces for feet. And you'd have a little doll or an angel. You could put 2 like that and make an angel. So there's another project you can make. But we're going to make the tassel. And you can see, this is how I knew how long I wanted my piece of cardboard to be, because my tassel goes from the top to the bottom. So with the yarn that I gave you, you're going to take your piece of cardboard. I like to hold it with my thumb, just right there. Hold it at the tip, and then you're going to wrap all the way around. If you wrap over that piece that you're holding, then you don't have to hold it anymore. I can move my hand now. Just keep wrapping, and I gave you enough yarn. You're going to wrap. You have 3 balls of yarn in your kit, so you're going to do just 1 ball of yarn to start with, and you can see I'm just wrapping right on top of it. I'm not using the whole cardboard. I'm just staying pretty much in the middle and just wrapping on top. And you just keep wrapping until you run out of yarn. If you're making more and you're using your own yarn, this little tail is going to come down to about here, but that's okay. However thick you want your beard to be, that's just how much you wrap it. So now I've wrapped all of my yarn on here. I'm just going to lay this little guy on top. I'm going to take my piece of string. I'm going to tie it up at the top. So I'm not going to use the whole string. I'm going to just tie it right here up at the top so I can do more than one. I'm going to tie it and tie it. And then I'm going to cut it. So now you can see you still have more string to do more. The E, so now I've just tied the top. You can see I pushed it through the cardboard, pulled it up to the top, and tied it. Now, because it's tied, I can take that right off. I can set that aside because I'll use that for the other ones. So you can see here, I have a tied top piece and everything else just hangs down. Well, I need to make a head. So I'm going to take the yarn. I'm going to go probably maybe the length of my thumb, would be just about an inch. I'm going to come down for just about an inch and I'm going to tie that. If you do not have enough string in your kit, you can also just wrap one less and use some of that. And I'm just going to tie it. I put my finger there. Just tie it in a good tight knot. I always like to tie 3 times. 3 times is a charm. Then you know it's really tied. And I don't have to cut any of this because no one's going to see that part. So you can see I have the top part tied. I then turned it to have the center tied, and I still have all this part. What do we do with that part to make it a tassel? Well, I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to take my hand and go like this to smooth everything out. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut all of these strings. I'm just going to carefully go through and cut all of those loops. Make sure none of the loops are hiding. And I have all of my loops cut. And now you have a tassel. If you want to trim it to make all of the strands even, you can do that. But there is my tassel. And if you just want to decorate with tassels, that's a fun way too. You can decorate with tassels all around your room. They have some really cool wall hangings that have that. So there's that. I'm going to set that aside for now because I don't need it right yet. Next, we're going to make this hat. I'm going to show you how. Let's start with the red and the green one, the striped one, so you can see how that goes. And then the other two will be exactly the same. And as I said, you can either use a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll, whatever you'd like. To cut this, I found it's easier, kind of flatten it out just a little bit. You want to decide how thick you want your brim. You're going to have a pom-pom on top, the yarn will go up, and then you have your brim of your hat. So you can see that that looks like that. So I cut it so it's about, oh, let's use the ruler and I can tell you exactly. It was about an inch. So if you want to measure, if you want to take a ruler, and measure out an inch, you can do that, but you don't have to. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to fold that a little bit so I can cut it. And I'm just going to cut that right in half. And then because I want them to be the same, whatever I cut the first piece, I'm going to put it right up against my tube. And if you want to take a pencil and draw a line, then you'll know where to cut your other one. If you have a paper towel tube, you can make an awful lot of them. And then I do want them to be the same. So I'm going to set it down again, make another line. So they're roughly about the same size. They don't have to be, it doesn't really matter because you're really not going to see it all that much. But now you have 3 and you can push it. You can just push it right back into a circle shape. So I have 3 circles ready for my 3 different gnomes. We only need 1. So I'm going to take 2 of those away and just work on the 1. You take your yarn. To get the size yarn that I wanted, I took a really long piece of cardboard, and to make it go really fast, because I had a lot of kits I had to make, what I did is I took my yarn, I put it up at the top, brought it down, that's 1 strand, brought it back up, that's 2 strands, brought it back down, that's 3 strands. This is a great way to do it if you want to make a lot of these and you don't want to have to keep measuring, because otherwise you would have to say, okay, I want them all to be pretty much the same size. So once you cut your first strand, then you have to put it together, pull it down, and then cut. The easiest way to do that is once you've decided how long you want it. And the way I did that is I just took a piece of yarn and said, all right, I imagine that's how thick my brim was. It's got to go around it. And I want enough of a tassel up here and then to trim it if I want. So this particular piece of yarn, again, it doesn't matter. This was 16 inches long, but it all depends on how wide you make your hat or how big of a pom-pom you want. So that's a great way to be able to make a lot of yarn pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pieces that I've already cut, and I used 6 red and 6 green. I'm going to fold it in half. We're going to take our tube, the circle part, put it through the tube. I'm going to hold on to the loop. I'm going to take my ends. To do less trimming at the end, make sure your ends are even. So kind of even those up. And I'm going to put it through the circle and pull. So now I have that connected. I'll try to do one up here. And you want to alternate your yarn. So because I did a red one, I'm going to do a green one. And it is very important to do it going the same way, whichever way you put your tube. Because I have it going that way. If I were to go, I'll show you the wrong way. You know it's wrong. So if I switch it and I put it going this way, oh, that's the right way. If I put it going this way instead, you can see my yarn ends up on the wrong side. So it doesn't really matter which way you start it, just keep doing it the same way. So once you put one on, then you'll know which way to keep going. So take your yarn in half, put it through, take your yarn, put it through the hole, grab it, and then pull. And then now I have to do a red one. Fold it in half. Take it, put it through the tube. I find it easier if I hold my finger up like that. That way I can make sure these ends are even and I can just push it through and then pull. And you're just going to alternate back and forth. You can use any number of colors. And once you do your first one, you're always going to know that your loop goes where your ends are hanging. So that's an easy way to remember it. So if you set it down and you don't finish, so you know this isn't even, I want to make sure that that's even. Put it through, pull. And I just snug them up close together. So you're going to do that all the way around. Putting it through. Like I said, if you keep your ends even, that's a lot less trimming you have to do at the end. You can do any kind of colors. I did red and green Christmassy colors, but you can do blue and white, any of your favorite colors. You can make a whole rainbow, whatever you want to do. Use one same color. Again, put your loop through where the edges are holding through. It's hard to do that up in the air. I'm trying to do it up in the air so you can see, but it gets a little fiddly. But then I pull that through. I'm just going to slide it over. And depending on how thick your toilet paper, you know, they're pretty much the same size. It all depends on how thick your yarn is. For this yarn, this happened to take 12 pieces that fit nicely. If it's a thinner yarn, you just keep cutting your strands the same size until it goes all the way around. Whoop. There. A green. So for this particular yarn, it seemed 12 was the good number. If it's the super thin yarn, you're going to use a lot more strands, but it still works and it still looks good. But I like the fluffy. There, and I have one left. And push it through. And pull it through. So now I've snugged it up. I'm going to fix that because it can bend a little bit. I'm going to go through, I'm going to make sure everything's tight. I'm just kind of pulling both strands to make it nice and tight up against the tube. So you have a tube that has been covered now, and they're all hanging through. Here's the cool part. Here's where it becomes a hat. Right now, it's kind of looking like an octopus, but right here, this is the cool part. You take your edges, I kind of twist it a bit. You're going to poke it through the top. You want it to get, I use my thumbs. You're pushing it all into your tube and coming out the other side. And make sure they all go through. Push it all the way down through. And then now you have them all coming up at the top. So now you can see you have your brim of your hat. So you can take another piece of yarn. I have the strand left over that fell out, so I'm going to actually just use that. I'm going to put that down. And I'm going to use the same color. You can use a different color. And I'm just going to tie it really tight, pretty much about the size I want my pom-pom to be. It looks kind of cool to keep it even with that color. If you have a long enough piece, you could tie that into a bow. If you use one of the colors you've already used, you won't see it and you'll be able to just cut that. If you use the super thin yarn, you can cut that as well. I'm not sure if I gave you, I can't remember now with the kits. I'm not sure if I gave you enough yarn in the kit. So if you don't have enough, string will work, or just do one less strand when you're making the tassel ones, and then you'll have some, or one less with your mop head, and that will work. So I have my hat and I have my tassel. All you have to do is push that right up through. Stuff it all the way up. That fills out the top part of your hat. You don't have to glue it if you don't want to. You can glue it in there. I think, you know, by pushing it in there, because I've used thick yarn, it stays without having to glue it. But that's up to you. If you want to then push it down a little bit and put some hot glue up into here, you can. But I don't want to do that because I think it fits just fine like that. And then you take one of the small noses. You can see, I always like to show mistakes too, because mistakes do happen. You can see this little piece. I didn't catch it when I tied it. So I can either untie it or just push that up and in. But that's why that little piece is hanging. So that happens sometimes. So you can pull that off and retie it. So for me, I'm going to put that to the back and then I'll fix it and then I'll cut that. So right here, I just want to see where I want my nose to go. Again, because this is a bead, I like to put the holes facing both sides. So we're going to put a drop of glue. I'm going to attach his nose. And then I'm going to take one of my strands and just kind of push that up against. You can even put a little piece of glue on the side of the nose, and then take whatever the closest strand is right next to it. That way you won't see the holes at all. And it blends right in. And that is your tassel gnome. If you want to trim the edges so they're all even, you can, or you can just push them in. You could also, for this, take another long piece of string and just go right through the hat, and then you can hang it like garland. And that is how you make a tassel gnome. If you wanted to make a pom-pom gnome, which is usually a little shorter and rounder, I like the scraggly beard. I like it to lay a little flatter and scraggly, but you can also make a pom-pom gnome. When you wrap all the way around, slide it off and then tie it right in the middle. So once you've slid, don't tie it up at the top. You would slide it carefully off and then tie it as tight as you can in the middle. And then you would cut this end and this end, and then you can fluff it around. The problem I don't like pom-poms is to really get it to be big, fat, and fluffy, you have to waste a lot of yarn. So you have to basically, if I wanted that to be super puffy, I'd have to cut this much off and that much off. Whereas if you make a tassel, it's already nice and thick and you don't have to cut anything except just trimming it. So those, I'm going to slide us back, take you for a ride, slide you back, woo, drop you. That'll be edited out. Thanks, Kayla. But that will be slid down. So here is your one gnome this way. And here is your little tassel gnome. And that's it. So I hope you have some fun making gnomes, because it's a really fun project to make, really easy to do, and you can use any kind of yarn. You can use mops, you can use whatever you want to use, paper, fabric, whatever. So I hope you had fun making gnomes and enjoy being gnome for the holidays. Bye.